put a lot of effort into controlling her stress. And for the first time in maybe 6 months, after her doing that and incorporating the medication, her throat symptoms finally resolved. So now
Wow.
she always tells me every time I see her, sometimes if she falls off the wagon, she'll come back to me just for my support, but she already knows what she has to do. She'll tell me, Dr. Adionwe, I know my stress is out of control. And the minute it started to happen, my throat symptoms came back, my reflux is back. And I tell her all the time, you know what you need to do. You know what the number one thing is here. We got to control your stress again. She'll go back to her counselor, she'll get back on her medication, and every single time she controls her stress, her symptoms resolve.
That is fascinating. That's the real life application of these things. And I mean, everybody experiences stress, but the thing with the Nigerian people is that we don't. I mean, I could be wrong here. This is just coming from my own perspective. Is that first of all, we don't even think about going to a counselor or a psychiatrist if they're available. That is for stress. I mean, everybody deals with stress, right? I mean, especially if you're in Lagos, you're going to deal with a lot of stress, and you just live with it. So I know we're talking about this prior to the program. Let's take us through the quote-unquote pathophysiology and break it down for us. The way a fifth grader, as they say, would understand it. How does a simple thing as having friction between myself and my spouse, how does that lead to things like hypertension and stroke and kidney failure and all those things?
So the first thing we need to understand is, why do we even have a stress response? Because it is created in our body for a reason. And that stress response was really meant to be a self-limited, a very periodic response to danger, or to a reason for us to have what we call a fight or flight response. So let's say you are somewhere and you perceive a threat to your life. Your body is going to start to release certain hormones, particularly two. One called adrenaline, one called cortisol. Cortisol is the primary one, but your body will release those hormones as a way to shut off certain systems that are not needed right now, and to increase other symptoms that you are going to need to run. So for example, when that cortisol and adrenaline get released, your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up. You're going to need to get blood to your body. You're going to need to get your heart pumping in preparation to run. Certain things that downregulate or your body decreases is your GI system. You're not worried about digesting food when you're in danger. You're worried about running. So your body has this stress response on purpose. Now, the reason why we see this response become a problem is when you experience a stressor that you don't control, as opposed to that response being very limited, being very quick, just to help you escape danger or preserve your life. Now that trigger, such as a marital issue, for example, it keeps that stress response going on and on and on. And that's not what that response was designed to do. So if you and your spouse have been fighting for 6 months or more, and every day you wake up, you are angry, you're stressed, unfortunately, that response is still triggered every day. That cortisol, that primary hormone, is still going. And now what was meant as a very temporary response has become a chronic response. And that hormone is not supposed to be around that frequently. So because it's around, it's sending signals to your body. One of the things that cortisol does is it increases blood sugar. Now, when you're running away, okay, you need that blood sugar because your muscles are going to need that energy to run, to escape danger. But when you're just in your home, you're not running, but you're stressed because of your spouse, you don't need all that blood sugar in your body. That becomes a problem. So you see how that response becomes an issue when you have a constant trigger, such as, a spouse in the home that you're not getting along with.
Doesn't stress also diminish the activity of the immune system?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is another thing that we see. Now, when somebody has the, sort of temporary stress response, when it's appropriate, that system actually improves your immune system. So cortisol actually temporarily improves your immune system. But the problem becomes when that cortisol stays around long term, it actually then sends a reverse signal. The body says, okay, well, this cortisol is around frequently. Maybe we need to diminish the immune system. So we've seen, and some of this is very scientific, but we've seen when cortisol levels stay prolonged, certain parts of your immune system called suppressor cells, they start to flourish and they start to suppress the immune system. And that's when you see things like colds and people being susceptible to flus and viruses. There's a study that came out that showed that if you were to take healthy individuals and put them in a stressful environment and then introduce the cold virus to them, the common cold, those that were stressed, they're most likely going to get the common cold. Those that are not stressed, they're going to do fine. So we've seen well established that cortisol ultimately suppresses the immune system if it's not checked, and you're more prone to sickness. And so imagine if you're already stressed and then COVID-19 is around you, your immune system is going to be susceptible even more so. Wound healing is tied to your immune system. So if your immune system is healthy, then your healing process is healthy. So again, you're seeing the consequence of elevated cortisol. One of the things that I was going to say in regards to COVID-19, when we talk about that immune system, that is a pillar of treating COVID-19, or rather preventing COVID-19. A lot of my patients that have come in scared about COVID-19, a lot of the different things that I've told them to do, like taking certain vitamins and minerals, that's all designed to bolster up your immune system so that you can maximize your protection. So if you're in a stressful environment, such as in Lagos, Nigeria, that's going to be a problem. I will tell you, one of the most interesting things that I have, statistics that I've found, do you know in 2015, Nigeria was called the most stressful country in the world?
No.
So, yes. When I was looking some things up, I found that. So now imagine being such a stressful country, because Nigerians, we have all the stressors that everyone else has: marital strife, work issues, personal issues between maybe family. We have all the typical stressors, but there's not, aside from just personal stressors, there's also environmental stressors. For example, using the United States, racism is actually considered a stressor. And there has been well-documented studies that show Africans and African Americans in the US suffer from elevated levels of heart disease. And racism is considered an environmental stressor that plays into why Black people in America have worse heart disease and worse health than white people in America. Now let's go to Nigeria. When we look at the environmental stressors, there's so many in a country that sometimes light is still being seized. There's a lot of people there's a lot of people still looking for work. You know, when we look at the recent social unrest with protests and things that people are experiencing in Nigeria, those environmental issues, they are real stressors for the people. And as long as you remain in that environment, unfortunately, you can't escape that kind of stress that's built into your life, on top of what you're already experiencing just as being a human with a husband or kids or family.
I think we definitely need to have you come back on, and we'll build upon this process. But I do not want to end this without having you give us your last words for the people of Nigeria. Remember, you're talking to millions and millions and millions and millions of Nigerians. So let's hear it.
So my last word to Nigerians who are listening to today's broadcast is, right now, everything in medicine is moving towards prevention, meaning the patient, you as somebody listening to this broadcast, it is up to you to protect your health. It is up to you to stay informed and to stay educated. What we find, medicine is not going to get cheaper. You know, people like me, unfortunately, are still going to cost. Surgeries are going to become more expensive. People are not going to have more access. Even in the United States, we deal with the same thing where people don't have access. So rather than only waiting for access, why not do what you can do now? taking your health in your hands, understanding what sorts of things can I work on to protect my health, to protect my life, to prevent some of these costly diseases, to prevent high blood pressure, heart disease, even prevent COVID. I will say, we talked about if I was going to be going to church before we started, and I'm trying to protect my family. So for now, I'll be looking at church online, but I'm doing all the things that I need to do, following the recommendations to protect my health and to protect my family's health. And whether it be COVID or whether it be heart disease, there's always something you can do to protect yourself and take control of your life.
Absolutely. Couldn't have been better said. Thank you so much, Dr. Susan Edionwe, and we will look forward to having you on soon. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy for your patients and for us Nigerians as well. So God bless. Thank you again for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being on. My goodness. Okay, take care. Bye-bye then. And folks, we will see you next week. Join us every week for Your Health in Your Hands. Remember, these videos are archived. They are on the NTA website. They are also on our website, brainandbodyfoundation.org. And you can go and catch up on a lot of those videos. God bless. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Bye.